कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन भज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन भज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जन रंजन मुनतीरावनचारि मुनतीरावनचारि जय राधा माधव जय बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन भज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन भज जन रंजन मुनतीरावनचारि मुनतीरावनचारि हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राम जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राम जय राधा गिरिधारी राधा गिरिधारी राम जय राधा गिरिधारी राधा गिरिधारी राम जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राम जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राम जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय श्री राम जय राधे जय राधे जय राधे जय श्री राम जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव श्री राधा गोविंद जी की जय श्री राधा गिरधारी की जय श्री बलदेव सुभद्रा जगन्नाथ भगवान की जय श्री गोनिताई की जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रयास्य भद्रस्य नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी प्रभुपाद की जय Reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. In February 1961, on Vyas Puja Day, the anniversary of the appearance of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Bhakti Vedanta Swami was again in Vrindavan in honor of their spiritual master. Some of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's disciples had gathered, offered flowers before his picture and held congregational chanting in the temple. But Bhaktivedanta Swami thought that they should be doing much more than that. They should be planning and executing the worldwide preaching mission that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had desired. Instead, they were gathering a gathering of independent individuals, each with his own small idea, each maintaining a small center or living at a center, but with no world programs, not even, where is it gone? Not even a program for India. Most of them had no plans or vision beyond their own bodily maintenance. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had asked for a governing body to conduct his movement, but there was no governing body and practically there was no movement. Some who had fought bitterly were again on speaking terms and feared that any sudden organization attempts now might simply stir up old animosity. At least they could gather together and make an offering to their spiritual master. Among his god brothers, Bhaktivedanta Swami was a junior sannyasi. Although a recognized writer and editor, he had no temple or followers. Yet he knew he was trying to follow Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. He saw himself helpless and alone against the vast forces of Maya. His god brothers were not an army united against Maya's forces, but were more like a pathetic monks growing old, holding on to religious principles and rituals, devoid of life. How could they gather to worship their spiritual master without distressfully admitting their failure, and in the spirit of better late than never, trying to rectify it? Since the custom on Vyas Puja Day was for each disciple to write an offering glorifying his spiritual master and to share it within the assembly of God brothers, Bhaktivedanta Swami wrote an offering, more like an explosion than a eulogy, and humbly placed it before his God brothers for their response. Right. Is that all?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Prabhu.
I was wanted to read the offering. Never mind. Okay, today's reading is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, Text 58. Varsati samayata kamam. People were repeating or just me?
Prabhu, you can recite first and then others can recite the verse after you.
Okay.
Thank you.
The Varsati samayata kamam prajanyayeva tarpayan samudrayeva durbodha satvena chala radhayeva. Varsati samayata kamam prajanyayeva tarpayan samudrayeva durbodha satvena chala radhayeva. Yes, please, others.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavad Pranam. Yes, please read it.
Yeah. Varshati smayata kamam varjanna iva tarpayana samudra iva durbuddha sadvena chalaradhiva. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I am also trying.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Varshati sma yatha kamam varjanna iva tarpayan samudra iva durbodha sattena chala radiva.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad Mataji.
Varshati sma yatha kamam paryanya iva tarpayan samudra iva durvadaho satvena chalaradiva. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Anybody else? Please come forward. No. Varsati, pouring. Sama, used to. Yata, kamam, as much as one can desire. Prajana, water. Yeva, like. Tarpayan, pleasing. Samudra, the sea. Yeva, likened. Durabodha, not understandable. Satvena, by existential position. Achala, the hills. Rantyeva, like the king of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. Aisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. Just as rainfall satisfies everyone's desires, Maharaj Prithvi used to satisfy everyone. He was like the sea in that no one could understand his depth. And he was like Meru, the king of hills, in the fixity of his purpose. Purport, Mahasila Prabhupada writes, Maharaj Prithvi used to distribute his message to suffering humanity, and it was like rainfall after excessive heat. The ocean is wide and expansive, and it is very difficult to measure its length and breadth. Similarly, Prithvi Maharaj was so deep and grave that no one could fathom his purpose. The hill known as Meru is fixed in the universe as the universal pivot, and no one can move it an inch from its position. Similarly, no one could ever dissuade Maharaj Prithvi when he was determined. Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namne Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharanya Nirvisese Sunyavadi Paschate Desvatarani Mukam Karoti Vachalum Pangum Lagrad Girim Yat Kirpatam Ham Bande Guru Dinatarani Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakya Chaksur Mitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guru Nama Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutre Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Tapada Kamlam Sri Guru and Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajiva Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Deva Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakha Anitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namasute Jaitam Surto Pangur Mama Manamater Gati Mata Sarvas Padambo Jarada Madanamopan Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavini Vrishabhani Sute Devi Paranam Kari Vancha Kalpa Tarubhayascha Kripa Sindhu Payo Chapti Tanam Pavan Vayo Vaishnavyo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanand Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Varsati Samayata Kamam Prajanya Yeo Tarpanye Samudriyo Durbodha Satvena Achalaradiva. Just as rainfall satisfies everyone's desires, Maharaj Prithvi used to satisfy everyone. He was like the sea in that no one could understand his depth, and he was like Meru, the king of the hills, in the fixity of his purpose. So let's just recap the chapters, because there isn't much in the purpose for me to elaborate on. Prithvi Maharaj is the 9th incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord accepted body of a king who cultivated the land to heal various producers. Remember, I chased the cow, chased the Prithvi in form of cow, and got her to surrender, and then she, the earth, told Prithvi Maharaj what he needs to do. And the reason why she had to stop producing products was because she maintains that whatever she was giving, whatever grows from the land, it was for the use of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the people were not doing that. They become atheists. So she had to stop producing products, food stuff, and when Prithvi Maharaj became the king, it was the responsibility of the king to look after the citizens. So that's the earlier story. Before the advent of King Prithvi, there were great havoc and mismanagement due to the vicious life of the previous king, that the father of Maharaj Prithvi. When the sages, not only remember the Brahmins, the sages, that not only prayed for the Lord to come down, but they also had dethroned Vena and killed him, cursed him, killed him. It is the duty of the king to be pious and thus look after the welfare of the citizens, since Vena wasn't looking after the citizens. He wasn't pious as well. He was atheistic. And so actually the sages, remember, they knew his character, because the king, in absence of the king, they appointed him, they put him onto the throne, but he turned out to be, he became totally against the Brahmins, and he stopped all the services to the Supreme Personality, like yajna and all the things. So they finally decided to dethrone him and curse him to die. So, and then there was a vacuum, there was no king. So they then churned the body of Vena, and from his body came up Prithvi Maharaj, which is the 9th incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as well the incarnation of Lakshmi as Prithvi Maharaj's wife. The intelligent class were advisors but did not occupy the throne. The intelligent class, remember the Brahmins? The Brahmins are not, remember, all the time Prabhupada reminds us that it's not just the caste of Brahmins, it's the Brahmins, the intelligent class, who have studied the literature, the Shastras, and who follow the Shastras injunctions properly. And they were the advisors of a king, but did not occupy the throne. They didn't become the king, but they were the advisors, because they have much more important duties for the welfare of the public. Here, Prabhupada mentioned that the running a country and advising the duties of the Brahmins is much more important than the king's duty, because they are dealing with the welfare of the public. The intelligent men or qualified Brahmins or sages were never aspired for political posts. Prithvi Maharaj cultivated the land to heal various produces, and for that reason the earth was beautiful and attractive. In the form of king, the Supreme Personality of Godhead had appeared through a part of his potency to protect the people of the world. The goddess of fortune is the constant companion of the Lord, and therefore she had incarnated partially as Archi to become King's British Queen. Many living entities, this is in chapter 15, same canto chapter 15. Many living entities are classified as Shakti Tattvas of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And such incarnations empowered for specific purposes are known as Shakti Vesha avatars. King Prithvi was such a Shakti Vesha avatar, was one of the Shakti Vesha incarnations of the Lord. And similarly, Archie, King Prithvi's wife, was Shakti Vesha avatar of the goddess of fortune or Lakshmi. Before accepting someone as an incarnation of God, one should verify his identity according to the symptoms mentioned in the Sastras. I'm not going to go through that, all of you are aware of it. Remember when Brahma came to visit Prithvi Maharaj, he checked the symbols and then worshipped him as Supreme Personality of Godhead. King Prithvi is compared to the sun and the demigod Indra. In earlier, last 16th chapter, he is compared as sun and demigod. In King Indra, King Prithvi would arrange for the distribution of rainfall personally. Like if Indra failed to provide rain, King Prithvi would not wait for him. He would, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he himself provided rain. So there was no shortage of, there was no drought. People never suffered with any drought or lack of food. Remember, after he cultivated the land, then the Earth planet, after that, there was abundant amount of food stuff and whatever people needed. Remember, that was the suggestion of planet Earth, and was accepted by Prithvi Maharaj. Whatever is planet Earth mentioned, or Srila Prabhupada in his paper tribe said, whatever is taken from the earth, either from the mines or the surface of the globe or from the atmosphere, should always be considered the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should be used for yajna. Remember, another word for yajna, for another name for yajna. Yajna means Lord Vishnu. So should be used in the service of Lord Vishnu. Although one is empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is an incarnation, he did not forget his external relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prithvi Maharaj, he knew who he was, but he was setting an example of an ideal king, and he never ever pretended or allowed people to think that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, Lord Ramchandra, when the Lord came as incarnation of Ram, he was doing similar, setting similar examples. As far as Maharaj Prithvi was concerned, he was a great devotee of the Supreme Personality. He never ever pretended or considered himself to be Supreme Personality of Godhead or an incarnation. He always considered himself as a devotee of the Supreme Personality. Therefore, it was not necessary for him to perform the sky Vedic ritual ceremony. Such ceremonies known in the karma kandas, he never practiced that. When Lord Brahma came in to visit him, he addressed King Prithvi Maharaj as Prajapati, just to remind him of his great responsibilities in maintaining the peace and prosperity of the citizens. Maharaj Prithvi was empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his purpose. it is the duty of the ideal king to see that people are properly executing religious principles. One of the duties of a king is that it's not only just looking after the citizens, people of this country, but ensuring that they properly executed religious principles. And some people, like King Ben, he stopped it. Ravana stopped it, and Hiranyakashipu stopped it. So, but a proper king, his duty was also to execute, to make sure that the people, his citizens, are properly following the religious principles. And Lord Brahma reminded, not that King Prithvi needed it, but just to show, didn't remind in specific words, but called him Prajapati, meaning that that's what his responsibility. Lord Brahma especially requested King Prithvi to conquer the pseudo-religious principles produced by King Indra. Remember when Prithvi Maharaj was conducting the yagnas, Ashwamedh yagnas, and he wanted to perform 100 yagnas, and Indra tried to stop it, and while doing that, he produced lots of irreligious things. So Brahma reminded him to get rid of that. Our religious principle is one given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it comes through the channel of disciplic succession. Purpose was to establish King Prithvi Maharaj's purpose of coming down, or the Lord's purpose of coming down on this planet was to establish good government and set things in the right order. That was before, after when plundered everything. Vidur Maharaj requested that I wish to hear more and more about Prithvi Maharaj because his activities are so pious and auspicious. The purpose of Vidur Maharaj's request was that Prithvi Maharaj was setting an example of an ordinary king who to execute as an executive head, who should all be inclined to hear repeatedly about Prithvi Maharaj's activities in order to be able to rule over their kingdom or states very faithfully. This is the reason why Vidur Maharaj was saying that, so that he's setting an example of emphasizing that at least the kings should be listening to the pastimes of Prithvi Maharaj, how he ruled the planet, so that they can follow the examples. Prithvi Maharaj's sole aim in ruling his kingdom was to raise the citizens to the standard of God consciousness. He advised the citizens to become Adokshaja Dihiya, which means God conscious or Krishna conscious. And he presents the authority of Shastras, even though his father was #1 atheist who did not abide by the injunctions mentioned in the Vedic Shastras. So after when plundered everything, Prithvi Maharaj tried to establish the religious principles according to the Vedic Shastras. And he, remember, when had stopped all sacrifices, performances, and was so annoyed the Brahmins, they actually dethroned him and killed him. Atheistic men do not believe in the existence of God, and thus they understand everything which is happening in our daily affairs to be due to physical arrangement and chances. So many examples of this in the current time. They believe only in metta and hold that metta under certain conditions of amalgamation gives rise to the living forces, which then appear as Purusha or the enjoyer. And then by combination of metta and living forces, the many varieties of material manifestations come into existence. This is purport of Srila Prabhupada. Chapter 20, last chapter. Nor do atheists believe in the injunctions of the Vedas. According to them, all the Vedic injunctions are simply theories and that have no practical application in life. Atheists very vaguely explain that these varieties of existence occur simply by chance. But the theists who believe in the injunction of the Shastras must reach all their conclusions under the direction of the Vedas. I mean, we have experienced so much of it in India. When the Mughals came in, they tried to change Sanatana Dharma, and the British, and currently the Indians are doing it in some ways. The specific importance of the Kumaras, remember how this is coming to the chapter. The Kumaras came in to remind him, actually, they are in the Bhagavatam, they are telling Prithvi Maharaj how to become God conscious, but mainly is teaching us so that it's there for us to read and understand it. The purpose of the importance of the Kumaras is that they were brahmacharis living the life of celibacy from birth. They kept themselves as small children, about 4 or 5 years old, because by growing into youth, one's senses become disturbed and celibacy becomes difficult. So that is the reason why Kumaras stayed as 5-year-old kids around that time. So the purpose of Kumaras remain children because in a child's life, the senses are never disturbed by sex. This is the significance of the life of the Kumaras. And as such, Maharaj Prithvi addressed them as the best of the Brahmins. Not only were the Kumaras born of the best Brahman, who's the best Brahman? Lord Brahma. But they are addressed as Dvij Sreshta, best of the Brahmins, on account of their being Vaishnavas also. Remember, best Brahmans, again, within, it's not just Srila Prabhupada, within Bhagavatam, is qualified, the qualifications for Brahmins are given here by praising the Kumaras. The best of the Brahmins, they are addressed in that way because one, they are Vaishnavas, they are control of the senses, and remember the Kumaras have their own sampradaya, the Nimbarika sampradaya, their own Vaishnava sampradaya. Out of the 4, there's one of them. The life and dedication of Maharaj Prithvi is transcendental, loving service of the Supreme Personality of God. And he says good examples of Karma Yoga. If you want to understand Karma Yoga, we need to read and understand how Prithvi Maharaj, what he was performing, or how he was performing in it. It's a good example of Karma Yoga. Maharaj Prithvi is giving a practical example of Karma Yoga. The first requirement for the proper execution of Karma Yoga is given as Phalam Brahmani Sannyasa. One must give the fruits of his activities to the Supreme Brahman. And who is the Supreme Brahman? Krishna. So, I mean, this is the gist of it. How do you perform Karma Yoga properly? So whatever the fruit of your activity is offered to Supreme Personality of Godhead. To give up the results of all activities is called renunciation, tyag. And that state is called the renounced order of life, which is sannyas. Sannyas means you give up the results of all activities. Where do you give it? You give it to the Supreme Personality of God. Although Prithvi Maharaj was a householder, was actually in the renounced order of life. Remember in the text 51, just recently, Maharaj is addressed as a sannyas because was not attached to the results of his activity. Though he was a grasta, he had a wife, living a life of grasta, but he was not attached to the results of his activity. So he was also addressed as a brahmachari, sannyas and brahmachari, because he wasn't attached to the activities. Maharaj Prithvi was also as tolerant as the earth, and in fulfilling various desires of human society, he was like heaven, was giving everything, whatever people wanted. It is the duty of the king, once again, to give protection to the citizens and to fulfill their desires. At the same time, the citizens must obey the laws of the state. Maharaj Prithvi maintained all the standards of good government, and he was so invincible that no one could disobey his orders. So he not only provided everything, he expected from his activities, people dare not disobey him. They respected him and obeyed all the rules and regulations, followed the rules and regulations. During his reign, there's some things I've listed here. During his reign, there was no disrepair, no calamity, no famine, no disease, and no mining. Even people were not mining like we are mining these days. Cows yielded buckets of rich milk when they were milk. This reminds me of Ramaraj when Lord Ram was around. Trees and lotus always had honey in them. People were healthy and happy and had no fear of thieves or wild animals. Fruits were always sweet and ripe, and nobody went hungry. For the first time, civilization and commerce came into existence. It was during Prithvi Maharaj's time that land cultivation started. Remember in, I think last chapter, he invented the plow for plowing the land and cultivating land, and this was during his time. Commerce came into existence. Prithvi Maharaj appointed Sukracharya, the son of Bhrigu, and Gargamuni, the son of Angiras, as his teachers. And the Valkalyas is a group of consisting 60,000. It's an interesting thing I found out that his advisors or counselors were Valkalyas. Valkalyas are thumb-sized entities, ascetics, and known for their genius. And they were his counselors. Valkalyas live in the Surya Mandala, the solar region. They travel in front of the sun in the shape of birds. They wear hides of animals. They are righteous and are only as big as thumb. They are very ardent in doing the works of demigods. They are sinless. They worship the sun daily. This is from Mahabharata, Anusasan Parva, chapter 141. Authoritative. Valkalyas were born of Kartu by his wife Sannati. Kartu is Manas Putra, mental, mind-born child of Brahma. And this is from Agni Puran, chapter 20. He considered to be one among the 7 great sages of that age of the first Manu. This is Kartu. The Atharvaveda credits King Prithvi of inventing the plowing. And thus agriculture, as I mentioned earlier, is also described. He also, remember, flattened the rocky surface of the earth so that people could do agriculture. Of all the assets, I'll give you an example of the best of the kings at that time. They had the Brahmins, the sages, as their ministers or advisors. And here remind me of King Dasarath in the Valmiki Ramayana, that he has the 8 ministers who he carefully chose them. He had Drishti, Jayanta, Vijay, Surshastra, and like that, 8 ministers. The 8 ministers were men of pure mind and great integrity. Their love for the country and its people alone. This is the quality of the ministers, the government or the prime minister, whichever should have with them. And they were loyal to the king, encouraged them to use their foresight in devising policies and plans to help their country progress. They were learned, affluent, modest, and unpretentious men with exemplary skills. Their words complemented their actions. Their self-control was such that they, when provoked, angered, or even tempted with wealth or sex, they did not hear. Not only did they embrace truth, they also inspired others to value it at all times. They appreciated virtues in the elders and showed them respect, overlooking their lapses. They were resourceful and assessed people and situations very quickly. And at the first whiff of trouble, they took immediate action. Their intelligence was so keen that they never failed to live up to the expectations of doing the right thing at the right time. They were equipped in war and peace. And similarly, remember, these days, most of the, I would say, governments, all the governments have advisors, whether they are of this quality that's mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana or not, that's another matter. So this is, if we, in our literature, we find that there are examples, many examples of kings having advisors. And with the, in addition to the 8 ministers, there were, King Dasarath had 2 very venerable saints named Vasisht and Vamdev, who were also they are his advisors. And remember in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 42, Lord Krishna specifically tells us the qualification of Brahmins. Remember, in Bhagavatam, a lot of places emphasizes the importance and the respect for the Brahmins, but Lord Krishna mentions the requirements or the qualifications of the Brahmas. As a text, chapter 18, text 42, the Amo Damas Tapasaucham Shantir Arjavayam Evacha Kyanam Vijnanam Astikayam Brahma Karma Sabhavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmins were. So it's not just by birth, it's definitely not by birth. La Prabhupada tells us again and again. Brahmins means representation of the qualities of goodness. Anywhere you find the qualities of goodness, that is Brahmanism. Brahmins are not by birth or caste. And a very one word definition of a short definition of Brahman is Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. Brahma Janati iti Brahman. Means Brahma is the, not Brahma, Brahma. Janati iti Brahma. Person who knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a Brahman. So that's all I have to share or say on this matter. Any comments and questions? I'll do my best to respond to it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Such a beautiful narration of the text 58 with your all experiences and your examples. It's really very enlightening. And here we can see how you described about the further three qualities of Pithu Maharaj, as he is like a sea, just like a mountain. So how you describe how depth he is. So you can understand from his quality, and this shows that he is a torchlight carrier, and he shows the people in general to follow, to understand his quality in grace, so that they can follow it and understand it in the right perspective. It's just like rainfall, satisfying everyone. It's just like sea, which is unimaginable to understand its depth. And is like a meru, we fix it in purpose. So such a very good example of his characteristics shows us to lead our life in this way by following Pithu Maharaj qualities, so that qualities can be imbibed in the progress of our spiritual advancement. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, one other thing is the mention of he was Prithvi Maharaj is compared as like a sea. People could not understand the depth of what Prithvi Maharaj had, is also stable, fixed, like Mount Meru. Mount Meru is the some people call it, the stem of the lotus. I can, don't quote me on that. This is some of the things I've read, and it's the mountain that goes through the 7 planetary system that we have got, which is you can't move it. So that's how fixed Prithvi Maharaj was in his purposes. Nobody could change his mind. Once he had decided something, he would do it. It was fixed like Mount Meru. Mount Meru, his proper name is Sumeru. And anybody else or any questions?
Thank you.
Hare
No
Krishna.
one? Yeah, Prabhu.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please
continue.
continue.
Continue, Prabhu. Continue. No problem.
Yeah, please, Prabhu, you continue.
No, I just wanted to thank Prabhuji for sharing so many references from so many scriptures which we are not aware of. In fact, so much information about Maharaja Prithu, we are not aware of so much wonderful information you shared. So thank you for that, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dhanavad
Thank you
Prabhu.
very much for the very nice class, particularly bringing us the very important thing that the life of Prithu Maharaj and most of the information we get from him is for the future kings and for us to follow, because he was advised by the best Brahmanas at the time, the four Kumaras, and also he was in possession of all the good qualities. He was told by these four Kumaras as well as by the Brahma. So his life is an inspiration for us. The more we know about him, the more we can know what is as against the present age of this Kali Yuga, the things are so polluted that we do not know what is the standard really set by him, and we fail to understand him. But he has showed us the highest standard of life, where as a king he has displayed his duties so well, and without being attached to the results, he performed it so well, and all the citizens were very happy and they had no problem. And as you have explained, like the Ramarajya, people were free from all anxieties and all that. And in this way, we have got a picture of the ideal king as well as ideal citizens. And it is a standard we can think of, because in the present life we are all divorced of these qualities and the situation. So he is a lighter inspiration for us.
Yeah,
Thank
this,
you.
not just Prithvi Maharaj. Our Shastras are full of kings like Prithvi Maharaj. Example I quoted was Lord Ramchandra, and there are many kings, right? Harishchandra and all sorts of them. And closer to our time is the King Yudhishthira. And of course, at the same time, Lord
And also Parikshit Maharaj as well after him.
Parikshit Maharaj. Yeah, there's many examples in our Bhagavatam, and the Puranas have got lots of them as well. So there are many examples, not just for the kings. There are many examples for ordinary people to follow. Remember, the purpose of human life is to save Krishna and go back home. So that's the simple message we should get is, and we can see the things are getting worse and worse day by day. So need to improve our devotional services and get marching.
Yes.
Anybody else? No one? Then let me sum it up.
Yeah.
Varsati samayata kamam prajanyayo tarpanyam samadrayo durbodha satvena chala radiva. Just as rainfall satisfies everyone's desires, Maharaj Prithu used to satisfy everyone. He was like the sea in that no one could understand his depth, and he was like Meru, the king of hills, and in the fixity of his purpose. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to assembled devotees. Vanchakalpatrupeshta Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo
Vaishnavibhyo Jai.
Jai.
His Grace Rasparayan Prabhu ki
Jai.
Adi ki
Prabhupada
jai.
ki
Hare Krishna to everyone. See you next time.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Krishna.